Welcome guys to my first West Ham related video on the channel, and today we are doing a West Ham United tier list and we are ranking every single West Ham player from keep to sell. So I'm sure you guys know how football tier list works, but I want to show you how I'm going to judge these players on. I am going to take into account that I think we're going to be a Premier League club next summer, because if we wasn't, then this tier list will be completely void because a lot of these players would probably be sold. We have in the bin. So in my opinion, it's time for you to go. You've had chances and you need to go. Just go. We have squad player. You're not that bad where I think we should be selling you, but you could do a job in the first team if required, maybe a suspension or an injury. We have first team. You're going to be making regular appearances for the team, but you're not maybe that important where we should be going, right, if we lose this guy, we're dead and buried. We have important player. Now, this is where it starts to get juicy, because these are going to be players that we should be maybe building philosophy, a tactical style around. These are going to be players that are going to try and drive us up the table. We have keeper at all costs. Now, this is probably going to be only one or two players. You probably guys know, if you support West Ham or have any knowledge regarding West Ham, you probably know who's going straight in this box when it comes to it. Now, let's get into it. So the very first one we are going to be judging, and that is Felipe Anderson. It's going to be a bit of a controversial one, but I believe that Felipe Anderson should be sold this summer. He's had plenty of chances, and West Ham as a club, we are sort of a yo-yo club in that mid-table to relegation fight. One season we're 12th, the next season we're fighting a relegation battle like we're doing this season. And if we're going to move away fighting relegation battles, we have plenty of players in our team who are far too inconsistent. And Felipe Anderson, on his day, he is fantastic. Yeah? Norwich at home, just a reminder, he was absolutely unreal, but those days are few and far between them. So for me, I would personally sell Felipe Anderson this summer. We're going to make a loss. He's not going to be a £40 million player anymore. We'll probably get 20 million if we're lucky. I would personally sell him this summer. Fabian Balbuena. Now, David Moyes doesn't seem to like him. It is publicly, well, not publicly well known, but it is rumoured to be that David Moyes does not rate him. But for me, he is a useful squad player. The very first season we bought him, which was last season for £4 million from somewhere abroad, right? The Paraguay international actually played pretty well. He was one of our better defenders under the first season of Manuel Pellegrini. But for me, he's a squad player. He's not, we need him just because we don't have that much depth in the central defensive areas. Now we have Ben Johnson, someone who I would like to see more in the first team. We've only really seen one or two games. He played really well against Manchester City away, which we lost. But for me, again, he's going to be a squad player. But I would like to see him maybe push to make some regular first team appearances next season. That is probably the next step for Ben Johnson. But based on what I've seen so far, he had a very good first game. I'm not going to just chuck him into the first team. But for me, he is going to be a squad player. Antonio. Now, Mikel Antonio, for me, right now, is probably the most, informed striker in the Premier League. 6 goals in 4 games since the restart. Yes, 4 of them have come against Norwich. But for me, right now, he's an important player. He isn't the most blessed technically. And with Antonio, he's one of those players you don't really know what you're going to get. I did say this with Anderson, very inconsistent. But you know what? Antonio, we paid £7 million for him against from Nottingham Forest. He has turned up, more often than not than Felipe Anderson. And the way he started this restart, for me, he's got to be an important player. With Haller not really in form and struggling to sort of adapt to the way Moyes is wanting to play, for me, Mikel Antonio is an important player. Albion Ajeti, where did we get this guy from? £8 or £9 million from Basel. For me, he's straight in the bin. David Moyes was quoted to saying, well, I haven't really seen him play. David Moyes has managed him for 6 months. What do you mean you haven't seen him play in training? What are you on about? Of course he's not good enough. He was one of those panic buys because we sold Chicharito, we got rid of Carroll. Obviously, we only brought Haller in, so we had to sort of bring in a striker. So when Haller got injured, right, we've put Antonio up front, and then Ajeti still doesn't even get on. For me, what a waste of £8 million. He's in the bin. See you later, Ajeti. Fullbacks. West Ham and fullbacks, they just don't intertwine, they just don't go together. And Aaron Cresswell, since 2015, well, since that main injury a couple of years ago, he's just not been the same. He's lost that pace. He's very suspect defensively. And for me, it's time to move on Aaron Cresswell. He's on a decent wage, probably like 50, 60 grand a week. And for me, he's in the bin. He's just not that attacking Cresswell anymore. And for me, he's got to go. Sebastian Haller, £45 million we spent on him from Frankfurt. And for me, he is still an important player. And I do feel a little bit sorry for him because there's been a lot of time when under Pellegrini, we played a flat 4-1-4-1. And in order for that to work, you need runners from midfield. We had Mark Noble behind him. So we had Declan Rice as a pivot. Then we had Lanzini and Mark Noble. Mark Noble Yeah, you're expected to do that running in order to sort of support the play for Haller. He's up on his own. He played in a 4-4-2. If we can get a formation and tactic around Haller, he will be an important player. And you just got to look at some of the goals he has scored. Bournemouth, Watford, a lot of the goals he scored. Southampton, I've been out of his own doing. 2 overhead kicks. The goal against Southampton, the ball got played into the box, high in the air. It was a poor cross from Cresswell, I think it was in the end. He out-jumped Alex McCarthy. The ball's on the byline. He gets it in from a tight angle. For me, we can't sell this guy. We spent 45 million. He's an important player. It's a Diop, mate. You know what? I'm sitting on the fence with you because you've been that inconsistent that you could easily be a squad player, but because of the fact that we don't actually have that many options at centre-back, we've only got Diop, we've only got Ogbonna, right, and Balbuena. For me, he's a first-team player. He's nothing more. The amount of mistakes that them as a pair in Diop and Ogbonna have made, Ogbonna's actually been the better of the two this season, which last season Ogbonna was absolutely terrible. So for me, Diop is first team, and centre-back needs to be reinforced as a position that we need to recruit in the summer. And if we do get a decent centre-back, then maybe Diop will drop down to a squad player or stay as a first-team player. For me, he has been far too inconsistent this season. But because the fact that we don't have much depth, he is a first-team player. Fabianski, a £3 or £4 million signing from Swansea. For me, he is still an important player. Since he got that injury, I think it was away against Bournemouth, and then Roberto coming. Oh my God, Roberto. I don't even think I have him on the list. Yep, he would have been definitely in the bin. However, Fabianski has still been a decent signing. A couple of mistakes against, Liverpool away, and even against Chelsea when Williams scored the free kick on his side. For me, he's still an important player. He has been our best number one for a number of years, probably since going all the way back to Rob Green. Fabianski is still a very important player to West Ham. Moving on to Pablo Fornals, a £24 million signing from Villarreal. In the Under-21 European Championship, he looked absolutely mustard, and I feel like a West Ham fans put a lot of those performances and were like, wow, what a player we've got. And there was a lot of hype around him on social media at the time, thinking we've got an absolute worldie. It takes a time to settle in, especially when you're trying to play in a new country. And for me, next season, we will hopefully see the best of Pablo Fornals, and he has got to be starting. One thing I really do like about him is his work rate. He works really hard off the ball, and that's why I think David Moyes likes him. I don't really like him being played out on the left mid, because a lot of our wingers, they naturally like to come inside. We have Fornals on the left, comes inside on his right foot. We have Jared Bowen on the right, who comes inside on his left foot. I'd like to see him played a little bit more centrally, given that freedom to move around. Hopefully he's been given enough time, to sort of show his ability. For me, he will be an important player next season. Ryan Fredericks, mate. Again, going back to the towel or fullbacks. West Ham are just not blessed in the fullback, areas. And for me, he's a squad player. I would have instantly put him in the bin, but because of Jeremy Ngakia, I think that's how you say his name, obviously he's now left West Ham. For me, he would have been number one right back. And if Jeremy Ngakia was still here, I would have put Fredericks in the bin, get a new backup right back in, and Ngakia could have started. But for me, because he's literally the only right back at the club, he has got to play. Well, he's not got to play, but he's got to be a squad player at least. And then hopefully reinforce. He's on 50 grand a week. The guy's not technically good. But however, the one thing that he does have over Cresswell is the ability to make up for maybe his mistakes due to his pace. The amount of times that you see a ball that's played in behind, but because of Frederick's pace, he's able to recover and, sort of play it back to the goalkeeper. Cresswell hasn't got that. So for me, that's what edges Fredericks as a squad player and Cresswell as in the bin. The first of 2 January signings that are going to be in this video from David Moyes in January, and that is Jared Bowen. For me, he's going straight into the important player basket. And the reason why is because he's so direct. He's something that West Ham have lacked. Apart from Antonio, we didn't really have much pace going forward. And now with that dimension of Jared Bowen that he offers us, he's pretty much just a quick Yarmolenko. Maybe Yarmolenko obviously is a little bit better, on his left foot, taking those chances, a little bit more clinical. Firstly, his work rate. Come from the Championship, he looks hungry. You see him, we were winning 4-0 against Norwich. He's in our corner flag, winning a tackle, right? So we can maybe spring on a counter-attack. For me, he's been such a good signing, £25 million, and I'd hate for us to go down because this guy would probably leave because he's got a relegation fee release clause. For me, he will be an important player for us if we're in the Premier League next season. Manuel Lanzini, where did it go wrong? Yes, he did get that very big injury, that ACL, I think it was, whilst he was playing for Argentina, when he was actually in the Argentinian squad and actually doing very well, but it's just not been the same. And unfortunately for me, it's time to go this summer. We'll probably only get £10 million, but again, he comes under the same bracket as Felipe Anderson. Far too inconsistent, and if we're going to improve as a club and no longer just being 12th, relegation battle, 10th relegation battle. We need to slowly filter these players out of the football club, and for me, Lanzini is time to go. A relatively easy one, David Martin for me is just going to be a squad player, third choice goalkeeper at the club, and for me, he had some very good games away to Chelsea where he performed a very good game. We won 1-0, so for me, he's a squad player. Now, Arthur Masuaku, again, he is going to be a squad player, and the reason why I have decided not to sell him, just because he has a little bit of variety in his play. He's very good going forward, and I would like to see him actually as like a backup left winger. I don't want to see him as a left back because he makes far too many mistakes as a left back. However, I'd rather him have make those mistakes further up the field. He's got a lot of pace. He's very good at dribbling and taking players on. Give him a chance, maybe as left wing. For me, he is definitely a squad player. Mark Noble and Angelino Ogbonna. Mark Noble is someone who is very much splits opinion in the West Ham community and West Ham fan base. Should he play every week? Should he be a regular starter? Should he be a squad player? For me, he's a squad player. And the reason why is because you don't see Wes Morgan starting every single week for Leicester just because he's won the Premier League title, he's been in the Championship, he's been in League One. And if we're going to get out of this sort of phase where one season we're 12th, one season we're 10th, the next 2 seasons we're fighting a relegation battle, I think since we've been in the Olympic Stadium, out of the 4 seasons, 3 of them, we've been fighting relegation battle. We're very much an inconsistent team despite some of the fees that we've played for some players. And for me, if we're going to get out of that phase, Mark Noble is not a starting Premier League midfielder. We cannot be starting Mark Noble in midfield against Premier League teams. He's very much, you know, technically he's still very good, but the way modern football sort of developed is that a lot of athletes, you see a lot of players playing in midfield, they're very athletic. Kovacic, Kante, even Declan Rice, very tall, you know, can get around the field very quickly. Mark Noble isn't that guy anymore. And for me, he's a squad player. Use your personality, use your experience to sort of impact to younger players. He still has a lot to do behind the scenes, and for me, he will still have a part to play in some games against like Tottenham, the London derbies, where he'll give that extra 5 and 10%. Ogbonna, very much, I'm going to put him in the first team, very much for the same reason as Diop. We don't really have the squad depth in central defence for me to go, right, let's sell Diop, let's sell Ogbonna, right, and let's sell Balbuena and then sign 5 centre-backs. That's not going to happen. But for me, he has been the most consistent out of the 2, and he has been probably up there with Declan. I'm not going to say up there with Declan Rice, because Declan Rice probably should win it, but Ogbonna should have a mention for Hammer of the Year, and for me, he's going to be a first-team player next season. Darren Randolph, a very simple one. Similar reasons to David Martin. He is going to be a squad player, a backup goalkeeper to Fabianski next season. Unless Fabianski leaves and then we promote him, I don't see him playing more than a bit part cup goalkeeper, or if Fabianski gets another long-term injury. Now, moving on to the first keep it at all costs. Yes, there's going to be 2 keep it at all cost players in this team, and that is Declan Rice. For me, this guy is far too good for West Ham already. This guy is going to be a future, you know, possibly captain for maybe Chelsea or whoever he joins in the Champions League. He's too good for West Ham, and I don't want to see, you know, West Ham fans, you know, on Twitter, etc. Oh, Rice, that West Ham be basically another Mark Noble. He will win. He will never win anything at West Ham, and he's got the opportunity to join the likes of Chelsea, maybe a long-term replacement to Nemanja Matic. When he does go, I don't want to see him be like, oh, Judas, etc. Unless obviously he does join Tottenham. So for me, Declan Rice, of course, is keep at all costs, maybe just for an extra season, but for us, he is worth 70 to 80 million. And if Maguire, that guy's an absolute shambles, by the way. If he can go for 80 million, why can't we charge 80 million? So Declan Rice, keep at all costs. Robert Snodgrass, now, he is someone that if I'd done this before January transfer window, I would have actually said he was a first-team player because he works hard off the ball. He has got very good set-piece delivery, and David Moyes generally does like him. But because of the signing of Jared Bowen, I do think his appearances will be a little bit limited next season, but I still think he will play a bit of a part to play next season. So I'm going to say he is between, like, you know, sort of the squad player to first-team player, but I am going to put him a bit of a squad player because most of his appearances will be coming from the bench. However, our second keep at all costs is Sukek. And now this is pretty surprising considering he only joined in January, but he is someone that we have been lacking for such a long time. Our midfield, apart from Rice, is very static. Rice's job is not in order to sort of bridge that gap from centre midfield to the attacking phase of play. And when we played sort of Noble and Rice, they sort of done the same job. And for me, you can just see the amount of goal scoring positions that Sukek gets in. You know, against Norwich, he had a couple of good chances. He's already scored 2 goals. If you include their own goal against Tottenham, he's technically scored 3 goals. But you can just see by the way that he does play, By the way, he's not the very most blessed technically. He does give away passes where 5 or 10 yard passes, they go off the pitch or they're stray. But generally, his overall play, very good in the tackle, box to box, gets in the box, scores headers, you know, does have some very good chances. And for me, he's a keep at all cost player. And it is, to my understanding, that if we do stay up, we will sign him permanently for 17 million, which I think is an absolute bargain. The last two players on this West Ham United football tier list, and for me, these are pretty two simple ones. Jack Wilshere, no doubt in his quality, but this guy's on 100k a week. And for me, he's just never going to be able to rediscover that sort of consistency where he's playing 20, 30 games a season. He'll play 1 or 2 games, maybe 3, look very good off the bench, but he'll always get that injury. He's just prone to injuries. Unfortunately, for 100k a week, he will be in the bin and he should be sold or contract terminated in the summer. Now, Yarmolenko, he's someone very similar to Wilshere, but however, for me personally, and some of my friends, we actually do agree on this, is that Yarmolenko is probably the most prolific and technical finisher at the club, like the most natural finisher at the club. And I would actually say he would be an important player, but just because of his injuries, I don't think he'll play that many games, in the sense that he'll play 15 games in a row kind of thing. For me, he's a first team player. He will get regular starts, I think, next season. But maybe, you know, Jared Bowen will go to the left-hand side and he'll play on his preferred right side. So for me, Yarmolenko will be a first team player. So guys, if you're new around here or you support West Ham, or you're just a general football fan in general, then hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, because I will be uploading more West Ham United content, and I'll see you later.